let me start. I think there's a NAR theme here. Let's start with the NAR theme. So, at a very high level, on August 14th, you're going to get two things. And I'm waiting for the August 14th for one big reason, because a lot of the states have implementation issues. So there's some states that have not even implemented what they're going to do. That's why we're waiting till August 14th. So on August 14th, I'm going to do two things. One, I'm going to do like a workshop that breaks down everything that you need to know. Number one. Number two, I'm going to give you a playbook on everything that you need to know, including what objections you get, David, what objections you get, how you handle them, how to negotiate. Literally everything that you need to know to handle NAR stuff, I'm going to give it to you on August 14th. But let me give you the super high level right now, and I'll give you an example of what I worked through and learned in 2 minutes. The first thing, there are 4 rules. All of you need to know this. You may probably need to write it down. There are 4 rules related to NAR. Number 1 is decoupling. Decoupling, all it means is that there is no more cooperation compensation. If you use the word cooperation, you are saying things that are not legal. Cooperation is dead. There is no more cooperation. Brokers do not cooperate. Cooperation, co-broke doesn't exist. Whatever you say is wrong. Cooperation does not exist. NAR says cooperation, NAR is wrong. Cooperation is illegal. Do not use the word cooperation, co-broke, buyer co-op, nothing. No more cooperation. Have I hammered the no cooperation in yet? Cannot use cooperation. It is buyer representation compensation or buyer agent compensation. You cannot call it anything else. Decoupling means this: seller pays listing agent commission, buyer or seller pay buyer agent commission directly at closing. Listing broker and buyer broker do not cooperate. Now, so number 1, decoupling. All right. Number 2 is no more offers of compensation can be made on the MLS, either directly or indirectly. Right? So you can't, in the agent remarks or private remarks, put, "Oh, we welcome all buyers." Like, don't do dumb stuff like that. It is illegal. You cannot make any reference to anything that a buyer can do in the MLS remarks. It is illegal. Directly or indirectly, no reference to buyer compensation on the MLS. That's number 2. All right? Number 3 is you've got to provide a very clear disclosure of how compensation works. So essentially, we have to break down for the seller and the buyer in both our appointments, very clear disclosure. You're going to see either your brokerage, Real's going to give you a form that says, did you explain this process? Or your states are going to come up with a form that do that. So that is number 3. You have to explain that. Number 4, you need a buyer rep agreement before you actually show a house. By the way, let me please request this of you. A major study was done to get people to sign a buyer broker agreement. And in the conversations, they found that when you say the words buyer broker agreement, you got a 37% acceptance rate of signing the agreement. When you called it a buyer representation agreement, you got a 76% rate of signing the agreement. Don't say buyer broker agreement anymore, just say buyer representation agreement. Don't say they don't understand what broker is. Remove any jargon from anything. So everything is a buyer representation agreement. All right? So those 4 things. Number 1, decoupling. Number 2, no offers of compensation on the MLS directly or indirectly. Number 3, you have to disclose compensation in some way. You have to talk about it. And number 4, you need a buyer representation agreement before you show properties. Brian, am I somewhat right on this one? Okay. We whatever our state broker says, I agree to. So good so far? Okay. Let me tell you a story of my active flip that I have right now. So I have a flip right now in Carmel, California, and we did a super flip on this house. It's great. And the listing agent tells me, "Hey, Sharran, so with all this buyer rep agreement stuff coming on, how much do you want to offer for buyer representation compensation?" I go, I'm happy to pay 2.5%. He goes, "Okay, well, I'll tell them that when they call." And I'm like, "Yes, do not put it on the MLS." He goes, "I can still do it until August 17th. I'm like, "Do not put it on the MLS." He goes, "But they're not going to know what to do." I'm like, "Do not put it on the MLS." He goes, "Okay, but when they call, can I tell them that you're offering 2.5%? I'm like, "No." He goes, "What do you mean?" I go, "Here's what you tell them. Tell them our seller is open to paying buyer representation compensation based on the terms of the offer." My partner lost his shit. He's like, "You are going to take this flip and we're going to lose money because you're doing dumb stuff." And I'm like, "Trust me, this will work." So he says, dude, I don't know about this. The listing agent's like, dude, I don't know about this, but I'll do it. And I said, I won't hold you. You're good, bud. He goes, so he's every time that's he put no commission in the MLS, so no co-op in the MLS because it's still allowed. And then he said, hey, my seller is open to paying buyer representation compensation based on the terms of the offer. We got 6 offers in 2 days. Okay, 2 of them are contingent on this flip, so just put them aside for now, right? Out of the 4 that were not contingent, every one of them were over asking because it's a low inventory environment. And here's what the request for the buyer representation compensation. They range from 2.5% to 1%. So I made an extra $21,000 not doing anything. Imagine how crazy that is. This is the reason, Jeff, because the buyer broker could not even talk to the seller, to the buyer, and get a full agreement signed about this. In fact, it's crazy, right? So I have an agent now she wants to sell me a flip, which is great, like a piece of dirt. And she goes, hey, so are you open to signing a buyer representation agreement? I'm like, maybe, like, what are the terms? And then she says, the first thing she says to me, Sharran, I've never worked with you on the investor side. I want to write you a no-fault clause. Now, Brian's going to kill me for saying this stuff, but I want to say, whatever is written and agreed upon is okay, right, Brian? Like, conceptually speaking. Conceptually speaking, right? So she wrote me a no-fault clause, and all she said in the no-fault clause was she said, hey, if there is a situation where I don't get paid as a buyer agent, I will not put it on you. She's like, I will not have, I'm never going to have to come out of pocket, right? And then I said, good, but you're missing a piece of this language. I said, I don't even want you to show me properties that don't offer buyer comp. There's a big reason for that. The big part of the NAR settlement is no steering allowed. And so steering means in the conceptual world where if you saw the traditional co-op offered of 3% or 1%, you show the 3% but don't show the 1%. We've all done that. Do not lie. We've all done that in some way, or at least we have thought it in some way, right? Or someone offers 4.5, you want to show that. We have steered in some way. Steering is illegal. You can't do that unless it is requested by the client. So I said, hey, I don't want to pay buyer representation compensation. So she said to me, are you comfortable me not showing you any properties that don't pay buyer representation compensation? I'm like, no, I want to see all of them. She goes, why? And I go, because let's write the offer and let them tell us no. That's the only discussion you need to have with them. The interesting part around this is you may not agree with my methods, but this is what's going to happen with savvy people out there, right? Super, super important. So we have to now navigate this in a very interesting way. The seller is not required to disclose what is being offered as buyer representation compensation. He's not required to. She or she's not required to. Therefore, if you have to explain this to a listing agent, or as a listing agent explain it to seller, you can say, there's multiple ways that we can do this. We agree upon our fee of 2.5%. Let the offers come in, and we can negotiate them as they come in. It's totally fine. Or you can say, hey, we're offering buyer representation compensation. How much do you want to offer? 2.5%? Great. And then you just tell the other person that, but I will tell you that you're leaving money on the table when you do that. But it's okay if that's what you want to offer, right? Jan and then Jeff.
On the listing agreement, I heard we have to, if the seller is offering buyer compensation, we have to write exactly what it is in there.
Good question. So that varies state by state. But here's the interesting part. If the seller is willing to offer 2% for buyer representation compensation, and I write an offer 27% over asking, and I ask for 2.5%, are you telling me that your seller will not pay the 2.5%? You don't know. Exactly my point. You don't know. Exactly my point. Therefore, every buyer representation compensation offer should be negotiated with the offer. What we're doing is we're decoupling, and you guys are very uncomfortable about this. Listing agent, one side, buyer rep based on contract on the other side. This is just a new world. And I'm telling you, the smarter ones will make a ton of money with this stuff. Yeah, Phil.
So on the opposite side, when you were looking at those offers and they came in between 1 and 2.5, was there any alignment on the lower ones being a better offer, or?
Good question. They were all in this situation. They were all very similar, so it didn't matter. So we just did a multiple counterback, and see who could come up. A couple people came up, and then we were done. But it gives you a chance to be a good advisor to your client.
I'm just curious, like on the buyer side, does that make a big difference for a seller?
No, if you were what I would do is I would write the offer with your full commission with 2.5, and then have them negotiate you down, right? If you're going to them negotiate you down, then you can go back to your buyer. But don't take it in the chin before you write the offer, right?
So the CRL MLS is already removed.
Yep.
So we just thought, right, offer on writing, I'm just putting in what it was.
Correct. Yep. But then you can, but they don't have to abide by that because it's not there anymore. Yeah.
So to answer your questions, because there's a lot of people that are concerned about the languaging behind talking to a buyer, correct? Is that one of the questions, right, that we had? We have to know how to explain. There's 3 to 4 scenarios that are going to happen, right? And Sharran might have a fourth or a third. There's 3 or 4 scenarios, right? The first is you, the buyer, is going to have to, and I would do it in a certain way, right? There's a format to a recipe. So the first way is the new way, right? What's the new way? What's the new way?
Buyer pays buyer compensation.
Buyer pays buyer compensation. That's what you guys are all worried about, right? The new way is the buyer pays buyer compensation, right? So let's talk about that first. So, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, the new world order that we live in, right? There might be a chance that the seller will not pay buyer compensation. It's, depending on your market, it's rare, it's common, it's not common, or we're not quite sure what's going to happen because it's a new thing. So we don't know what the sellers are going to choose to do. So in the rare instance, we are going to have to possibly have you come out of pocket for compensation. Now, if you follow the process, right, and we've taken Sharran's stuff and we've added a whole section to it, right? And we've taught you how to actually tie them down saying that they want your services throughout the presentation, right? Tie down questions are super important. Would you want representation? Would you want this? Would you want that, right? So after you go through the presentation, you show them proof, you show them what you do, you have to tie them down to them saying, yes, they want that. That's what we call objection prevention. If you don't get the tie down up front, then you don't know what they actually value. And then when you go to close or ask for an agreement, you don't know what they value, and you're just kind of spewing things out, hoping that what you say lands. That's not a great way to, that's a very weak position to be in, because then you're going to get the objections constantly. So you tell them, the first way is, it is what it is. You guys, it is what it is. The first way is that you might be responsible for paying a commission. Now, there's a couple of ways that you could charge, right? Sharran might have a couple of different ones, but one is you could charge a flat fee. One is you could say, this is our percentage, right? That could just come straight out. Attorneys charge 33%. It's funny, we're talking about 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10% when attorneys charge 33%. That's crazy ludicrous, but that's where the world we're living in. The second is a hybrid model. And a hybrid model is where the seller pays a portion, and if we're unable to work with your loan officer, your loan originator, whatever, right? If we're unable to work with the financing to incorporate just like how it's always been, because is it true or false that the buyer has always paid commission in everything we buy? Yeah, every time we buy something, who pays commission? The buyer. Why? Because without the buyer, there's no sale. Without the sale, there's no commission. So the trigger is the buyer, and that's how it's always been. But now it just isn't coming in the same format. So it's a hybrid model, right? The hybrid model takes the seller a portion and the buyer a portion, or it takes a portion from the buyer and a portion from the financing, or, right, a variation of that. Super easy, right? Like, we don't have to overcomplicate it. And the third, and the reason why we want to talk about the third last, is because we remember what we talk about last. So when I ask you guys, hey, what did you guys like about Cody's talk, or about what we've learned so far, you guys think about what Cody just talked about, because our brain remembers what we just put in it recently. So the third thing is well, nothing actually changes. Sellers are still willing in our market to pay compensation, right? This is where you should know the market data. And nothing actually changes, but we have to be clear on these just in case. Now, are there any questions specifically about what we just talked about? Now, you can tie them down after each topic, right? You can have 3 pillars of compensation. You can tie them down after each one, right? So probably the first one you need to ask a tie-down question is, hey, any questions about how this works specifically for you? And they're probably going to hit you with a series of questions because let's be real, they've never had to pay for compensation. So they're probably going to be like, well, what happens about this? What happens about this? What happens about that? And you should probably have those written down, right? And then if you're working with us in our group programs, you can bring those to me and I'll actually work with you guys to fix those so that you don't say things that are going to trigger sales resistance. If you're on your own, you should practice with somebody else, preferably not in real estate, that will give you a true, honest answer. Once you have them tied down and you've got them clear, then you can move forward to the next step. But you can't move forward to asking for like that video that she said, well, I'm going to send you how my compensation works, and I'm going to send you all that. Like, if that's exactly what is truly happening, and there's just like, hey, this is the process, and then that's the compensation conversation, that's not going to fly in 2025. Because the buyer's going to be like, well, we don't understand all these things, and somebody's going to have to answer those questions. Right? But it looks good on Instagram.
So I've done this 113 times right now so far. So David, I will have all the updated scripting in there in the next week or so. I already have it. So it'll be in there. Zoom out for a second and let me tell you what freaks a buyer out. It is incorrect, even though we think that buyers freaking out that they have to come out of pocket and pay buyer representation compensation. That is not what's freaking a buyer out. Let me tell you what's freaking a buyer out. Surprises. That is the only thing that freaks a buyer out. A buyer doesn't want to be like, hey, I removed all contingencies, now you owe me an extra 20 grand. That is all that they don't want. So you can say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, our job is to ensure that we get you a home that you want at a price that you want, at the terms that you want. But most importantly, in 2024, with all these new rule changes, I want to make sure you get it with no surprises. Can I show you how we do that? Now, Vikram is correct. This is called primacy and recency. Primacy is what you say first. Recency is what you say last. That's what people remember, primacy and recency. You can either go the primacy way of, hey, you're going to be irresponsible, it's going to be a hybrid, or they're going to pay it. You can go the other direction too, but you got to do it carefully. So you can say, typically speaking, what I've seen in my last 100 plus conversations is that a seller is going to pay for the buyer representation compensation, and we will negotiate that during the terms of the offer. Second, there may be a situation where we have to negotiate other things like concessions and inspections, etc., and we're used to doing that. In fact, there's a 3-part process, and we call it the 3 outs, where we have 3 ways to get out of the contract if we don't like what they do. So I didn't say you're going to get hybrid and you're going to have to pay something. I said I have 3 outs to get out. Or third, they may offer no buyer representation compensation, and then we have an interesting situation on our hands. But here's my promise to you. In none of these situations will you be surprised, because every single time before we write an offer, I'm going to show you what I call a net sheet. Here's what a net sheet looks like. And then you say, therefore, when you look at this net sheet, you will know exactly what is due from you and what you're going to get for it. Therefore, you have no surprises. I take this entire compensation conversation, I wrap it into 3 things and show them that I can manage all of it, and the entire thing around that is I'm safe, I have no surprises. You want to lead with the no surprises conversation. They don't worry about paying buyer representation compensation. They just want no surprises. That's all. So if they know they're not going to get any surprises, they're like, all right, I'm not going to get screwed, I'm not getting a surprise. And by the way, I have 3 outs. 3 outs are the 3 contingencies, generally speaking. Some of you have, do all of you have 3 contingencies in your marketplace? Physical inspection, loan, and appraisal. Some of you maybe only have 2. Maybe not the loan. Okay. Yeah. So roughly 3, and that's the 3 outs, right? Or how many outs you have. What you're doing is you're providing a way for them to know that you're not going to have them give them surprises. The number one thing that a buyer is concerned about right now is not paying buyer agent commission, but it's surprises. But I will tell you, this is my last point on this one. This is not a buyer agent problem. Jeff, you will agree with this. This has got nothing to do with the buyer agent. This is a listing agent problem. The more we suck as listing agents, the less we're going to be able to show the value that a buyer agent brings, and we will turn this whole industry upside down. If a listing agent, how many of you as listing agents believe that it is the right thing to do from a competitive advantage perspective to offer buyer agent compensation? Okay, this is what we need to learn. And this is what we need to be, this is what we need to be good at, right? We need to be able to tell a seller, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, let me tell you, yes, I work for 2.5% and this is all that I do. But do you remember when you actually got in this house? Oh yeah, you didn't pay anything. Well, you did, but it was baked into the value of the process. Now we have to offer some kind of incentive compensation to the buyer. And I would recommend that we talk through the process. And here's what that range looks like. But we don't have to make a decision right now. We can do it based on the offers that come up. Are we in agreement on that? Fantastic. Done. Right? Because now it is a listing agent problem. It is not a buyer agent problem. And this is my biggest pet peeve. If I hear any of you say this, like I will reach out to the DM and be like, what the heck? If you say something like, oh, I don't know post August 17th about working with buyers. I'm only going to go work with listings. You are crazy. That is the most idiotic thing to say. This is ridiculous. Do not say that. That makes no sense. You're actually in a better world to work with buyers with significantly better transparency right now. And I will tell you, as of January, this is going to be a nothing burger. Because people just get used to working through this entire process. Right?
So everything we went through this morning, I think the
important
important...
thought, just quick thought.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that every single first-time buyer consult that we did in the month of July, they weren't even aware. It's in our heads.
Correct.
They just need a pathway. That's all they needed.
Yep.
They knew that we can negotiate it, or their loan was going to allow for the compensation or for the concession.
Yep.
It was the deal was much bigger in the agent's head than it was in the buyer's head.
100%.
It's only the repeat buyers that you're simply showing them a new flow chart.
That's exactly right. And my only request on this is, I think we know it internally. I would offer to not use the word concession because they don't know what it means. So it's all jargon to them. They're like, I don't know what a concession is. Or are they giving me a handout? Like I told my wife said Ivy League grad. She's like, what is a concession? And I'm like, oh, it's when you negotiate with the buyer. Well, then say that. It's crazy. Like we use jargon a lot,
simple.
right? So, Cody.
I think we'll get right to this question. I think the important thing here to understand, everything we went through this morning, everything we're going to go through throughout the entire day, the better we have a good understanding of this process, the better content we can create. Because we can send this information to our email list. We can send this information. Like this is the concept. These are the funnel squeeze pages that we chatted about. Like the 3 contracts that govern the real estate transaction. That is the concept that people need to understand on a deep level so that when you go into the buyer presentation, they already have that information in front of them. So it makes the content is the gateway to make the conversation even easier.
I get so excited when like Cody uses 3 contracts to govern the transaction. Thanks, buddy. You're welcome.
Go for it.
Like 2 years writing that stuff, so.
And what Cody you just said piggybacked on what Shivani just said about first time. And the content part is what's going to get the buyers in front of those repeat buyers who are going to say, never heard of this before. I'm going to call up Jim because he sold me my house and see if I can work with him without having to do this. Yeah. Right? So that's...
We have a fiduciary responsibility in order to, there's so much bad information like Sharran was saying. Like go into Facebook groups. Any of these Facebook groups, people are spewing bullshit right now. We have a fiduciary responsibility in order to tell them how it actually works. It's like taking the information that Sharran just shared with you today and creating that content, creating those squeeze funnels. Like your buyer and your listing presentations are going to be so much better if you know this information and you're able to actually create the content, because the time they get to you, that conversation's already started.
Yeah. Jim had a thought, and then we can do some. Yeah, please do.
So many of my agents are being approached competitively from other team leaders about how they should only be a listing agent, thus they should leave my team because we're probably 70-30 buyers, okay? And honestly, even close friends of mine are posting that nonsense on Instagram. Is there like a short sentence that I can use to, other than to say you're a freaking moron? Right? Is there something reasonable that I can use to give my agents so that when that happens, that they can handle, or when my idiot friends, I shouldn't say that, when my lovely friends post that nonsense on social media, I can comment on it, and Instagram won't delete it and say it on.
I think it's really hard. So Jim asked, the question Jim's asking is, he's saying, hey, a lot of our agents, Jim's a little buyer heavy right now. A lot of the agents in Jim's world are being approached by other competitors saying, hey, that model's not going to work anymore. We can provide you a better listing model. You shouldn't work with Jim and Amen Real Estate anymore. That's what they're saying. And Jim's like, hey, what can I talk to them about? I'll give 2 quick answers. Answer number 1, which is unrelated, and answer number 2, which is related. The number 1 question I've been getting from agents is, hey, Sharran, it's cool that you have all of these things, but what do I tell my clients before the appointment, before the buyer? And I'll tell you what I'm doing. And I'm giving this away. I'm giving away what I'm thinking for August 14th. I already sketched out. I'm very close to recording I have a 4-minute video scripted that I'm going to record unbranded, it's a YouTube video that I'm going to post that you can just send to your clients. Because it's way easier for you to say, hey, here's somebody, I'll have proof of all my stuff. And you can say, hey, here's a 4-minute video that breaks this whole thing down. What I'm going to do, Jim, based on what you just said, I'm going to record an Instagram video that says, you're an idiot if you say that you're only going to be a buyer's agent. And then you just forward that video to everybody. Because they're not going to believe you no matter what you say. But I can actually articulate why. And then you can use those as talking points. That's probably going to be tighter, but it's the most ridiculous thing.
Just sit down with them and look at their business, right? Just look at their business. Like hey, maybe you might be better off as a listing agent going somewhere else. But let's look at your business over the last 12, 18 months and look at the data, right? First off, if you're a newer agent, it's easier to work with buyers. It just is. I built my business off of buyers. Then all those buyers went to sellers, right? So look at that. Second is, show me your listing presentation. Because do you think the listing game is going to be easier or harder? Because everybody's going to try to pivot into what? Listings. So is there going to be more competition there or less competition? More. Okay, show me your listing presentation. Well, let's work on that together because you have access to so much more. And so you can run training and teaching so you can actually teach them what they need to know versus just sending everybody sees easy, 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 easy. If real estate was easy, everybody here would be driving Maseratis and it'd look like a, Tai Lopez video. But it's not easy. This is the hardest sport out there in sales. So show them their numbers, show them the stats, and then say, let's see what we got. And it'll calm them down.
Yeah. Last comment on this one. I think it's good for all of us. I would ask your agent, how do you get paid right now? By the seller? Yes. And if the seller is unable to pay, what happens? We don't do the deal. Yes. Same thing, bro. Same thing. How do you get paid right now? By the seller? Yes. If the seller is unable to pay, what do? We don't do the deal. Yes. Same thing, bro. Different form. Same thing. Literally, it's the same thing, right? If the seller is unable to pay buyer representation compensation, they're a reverse FSBO. That's what they are. Same thing. Right? And that's all they need to know. When you tell them it's the same thing, you just have to use a different form. That's when they get it. Jeffrey.
In January, we started, every time we see 2.5, we've just been asking, can you do 3? It's like 85% of the time we're getting 3. Guys, the fear is in your mind. It's not real. It works. We started a BRBC, buyer agency competition, and they're running up, they're just signing their names on the glass all day, every day. We turned it into, this is what everybody else is doing, panic. While they panic, we walk through Gotham like bang. Trust me, it's gonna be a lot of fun. I can't wait for your presentation, but guys, it's not. Just have a conversation. Most of the buyers are unaware. Most of the buyers are used to paying for service anyways in every other department of the world. It's a normal thing. So when you have a conversation and then you talk about conversation, would you be opposed if I asked the seller to have this covered?
Bro,
And then they're like, what?
good language, man.
Yeah, I can do that. And then not only that, according to the agreement, my job is to help you, evaluate financing. Would you be opposed to me sitting down and working with the lender to construct a way and having a conversation? I do this often. This is what I do. So is it okay if I sit in while you're having that conversation and ask a few questions in regards to figuring out how we can put as much money in your pocket as possible? And then, boom.
Dude, did you hear the switch in his pacing and tonality? Like, he was chatting and then he, like, switched. That's all from role play, right?
They role play every day.
Every day when Jeff and Jose it's everyday role play that he can instantly go to that. You need to be that good. Instantly go to that. And when you role play, by the way, just FYI, Vikram and Cody will tell you this, you want to have some trigger phrase to start the role play, right? So for example, in my mind, whenever I say, so Mr. and Mrs. Klein, instantly I'm in role play mode. So you want some trigger phrasing that you can say, oh yeah, that's no problem. I'm in role play mode. You need a couple of trigger phrases to actually get to the role play.
There's another really great opportunity here, because as everybody's running away, right? Like, what does Warren Buffett say? I'm not that smart, but Warren Buffett says when there's blood in the streets, you get in. When everybody's cashing out or whatever, you whatever it is. Yeah, whatever it is. Smart guy, not smart guy. You guys should have the opportunity right now to get in, and you have the opportunity to steal market share. So instead of leaning into fear, lean into like what Jeff said. Do the role plays. It's not that hard. Like, yeah, you're going to suck at first. Big freaking deal. And then you're going to be a rock star and you're going to crush it and you're going to own the market share. Steve Wynn in 2008, right, when the market was burning to the ground, he built the biggest beach encore club out there and provided more services. When the market came back, guess who had the market share? He did. So go all in right now.
Let's do some seller lead stuff because I know.
Yeah, we're going to go seller leads. But to answer your question here, in regards to what if an agent, comes to me and says, hey, following on role play, just be like, okay, let's do a listing presentation role play right now. It's simple.
They won't know what to do.
They won't know what
Jose.
to do.
Yeah, we actually had that, and that's what I was going to tell you right now. Like, obviously there's role play and then there's presenting, right? And that was like a really like pivotal point in the career of a lot of the agents at the office when we went just from role playing into actually presenting.
Yeah.
Right? And there was one day where we were in a room full of the 10, 15 listed agents that were going to be on our solo seller program, where they're getting 30 to 40 seller appointments, per month. And a seasoned agent, 20 years in the business, I said, hey, can you create a listing presentation right now?
Yeah.
And she couldn't. And an agent that was there for 6 months, literally in 2 minutes, put the whole presentation together and presented. And I was like, that is going to be the difference.
By the way, just so you guys know, I don't know if you know, like Jeff and Jose run like a 130 person plus team. They'll do like close to $800 million this year. And they're both here. Like, think about the power of that, right? It's pretty insane.
If you don't invest in yourself, don't expect people to invest in you.
Seller leads.
Seller leads. What was the question around seller leads?
I think it was.
To get seller leads? I thought I already covered that this morning. Tons of ways to get seller leads. Something we're doing with the Brownell team right now. We're shifting a lot of our focus to YouTube ads, mailers, and door knocking. I think those are three of the best ways. Like when we talk about like organic, paid, or like traffic system skills this morning, organic, paid, traditional, you need to do all three. There is no silver bullet. Just like Sharran said, there's no magic script. There's no silver bullet. It's all three. It's digital. Like in the listing presentation, we talk about this. What's our integrated marketing strategy? So I'm going to flip that around here and what's your integrated marketing strategy? It needs to be everything. Like the traffic system skills we talked about today, for you, what's working really well right now is expireds. We have some people that are doing open houses and they're converting sellers and buyers. We have some people that are doing mailers. It's like find the medium that works best for you and then go all in. But I think it was Mario who said this morning, it's like you can't just Or it was Jan who said this morning, you can't just expect to do it for 3 months and like expect magic to happen. It's that consistency that creates the results. You know, you're like bringing it all back together. Our beliefs map our thoughts map our actions create the momentum. And it's in that momentum of the things that we do on a daily basis, the activities, that creates the results. Like, did you get listings right away when you started running mailers, Jan? No. There are scripts that we have. Like I have a buyer like letter done right. Like that works. There's tons of different, but if the campaign messaging isn't working, it's not the medium that's not working. It's your messaging is off. A lot of us think we have a campaign issue when we actually have a messaging issue. That's what I would say in regards to seller leads. Everything works. It all just takes time, skill, and volume.
Door knocking.
So the strategy that we're going to be running that I'm really excited about right now is YouTube ads in like a 2 to 3 mile radius. So like choose a zip code, choose an area. So that's like your digital strategy. Mailers, like I have a buyer done right, or there's a ton of other letters that you can essentially write. I loved what Jan said earlier today with like an actual handwritten letter. Send that to the seller as well. Your digital door knocking and your physical door knocking. The third element, idea that Vikram gave me many, many years ago that I absolutely love is an actual like handwritten Post-it note where it's like, hey, I have a quick question about your house. Here's my phone number. You create the inbound call. Now you got to be able to handle the inbound call. That's where the scripting, the role playing, when somebody calls you, it's like, hey, I saw this Post-it note on my phone. Like, what do you specifically say to that person in order to trigger the conversation? That takes skill.
I'll give you one idea from a seller lead generation perspective. I think about seller lead gen less as seller lead gen, but more as a consistent stream of sellers that I can always talk to. Because what happens when you think about seller lead gen is you're like, you got to do something. Hey, I got to get a lead right now. So the best way to generate kind of seller kind of conversations is somewhat of geographic farming, but there's a way to do it. I will tell you right now, when you think geographic farming, how many of you, when you think geographic farming, instantly think expensive? Don't lie. Right. Because you're like, I have to mail postcards to this neighborhood to actually do more. And instead of mailing, I'm going to suggest mailing nothing. But you want to get contact information for people in the neighborhood. That's the most important thing. So let's say, I live in a neighborhood, 450 homes, right? There's an agent that lives in my neighborhood who's my friend, and he's like, dude, how do I break into this neighborhood? I'm like, if I were you, this is what I would do. Run a recycling drive. Seems really basic, but literally you print out these flyers and you're like, hey, tell a story. Hey, I realized that I have, 13 old laptops, blah, blah, blah. And you put a picture of the laptop. And I decided that I was going to recycle them. I bet you have something too. We're going to do a recycling drive on Saturday, but I need to let them know how many people will be there. Can you just sign up using this QR code? So now I scan, I sign up. Now I know everybody that is in the entire neighborhood, people sign up for this recycling drive, right? And then people come to the recycling drive and it's done. I take all these pictures and I'm like, hey, just want to tell you that everybody came to the recycling drive. Here are all the pictures that happened. We donated X number of things. We saved the environment, blah, blah, blah. It's fantastic. P.S. Thank you so much for doing this. This is what brings our community together. Can you just reply if you got this email? I want to make sure you got it. You just reply. Now they have an outbound email from me. The next time I'm like, hey, I just got a message from Mario. He said that he found 10 more things that he wanted to do in this recycling drive. If in case you missed anything, can you just reply and just leave it outside your door tomorrow? And I'll actually drive around and pick it up in case you did that. Now you're getting delight. So now if people are like responding to you in the neighborhood, you may say, well, Sharran, where is this real estate conversation? Then you turn around, the third email is essentially saying, hey, the number one reason I was doing this is because I'm a resident in this marketplace and I live here and I sell here. I sell real estate in this area. And I've been talking to other people about, doing this and doing that. If you're ever curious about real estate in our market, just let me know. But starting next week, I'm going to be sending you the only thing that I send to my private clients. It's called the Deal of the Week. I'll send you one next week. And if you don't like it, you can just tell me and I'll take you off the list. So I'm priming what's coming next week. But they can't tell me to take me off the list because they haven't even seen that yet. Then the next week, I just start them on the Deal of the Week. You're done. You're going to crush. 3 weeks in, you're going to crush because you get all these free inbounds. You get the whole neighborhood map. And then in the fall, you do a Halloween candy drive, and then you get the rest of him. Literally in the 450 home neighborhood, he got 400 people's names, phone numbers, and email addresses. That's insane if you think about it, right? Because now you're in contact with them the whole time.
I'm gonna couple that into something that our friend Jason Kapler gave us. You know where I'm going with this. So if you really want to make a massive splash, so you start there. That's the first campaign you run, and you run something we call giveaway of the week. So if you want to create some really great brand, local presence, local networking, you partner with your local restaurants. You get all the information, and every week you choose a different restaurant, and you send that. You say, "Hey, this week we're giving away a $50 gift card to this local restaurant, or a $50 gift card to this local, spot, like this local place." And you run that weekly. No one wants to unsubscribe to a giveaway of the week. I could win a $50 gift card. So for what would be, let's call it, $3 to $6 grand a year of goodwill marketing, you're getting inbounds. So you're running deal of the week and you're running giveaway of the week. It's one of the things that Jason Capital gave us. If you want to build massive brand in a local community, I would run that campaign.
And you don't have to spend any money. You can go talk to the managers and the owners of these places, and you can collaborate with them, right? You could do events there. There's so much you can do that doesn't cost money. You just have to be resourceful, right, with your resources.
The only thing I would say is a lot of times when we think about lead generation, we want a lead. Stop thinking about a lead. What you want is your total addressable market. You don't want a seller lead in my 450 person home neighborhood. You want to know every person in my neighborhood, because you have no idea when that will happen. You have no idea when a neighbor is going to talk to a neighbor. You want to know everybody. So instead of thinking, can I generate a lead? You want to say, can I know every home in this neighborhood? Can I know every homeowner in this neighborhood? You want to get total addressable market. Once you get total addressable market, everything is easy. Everything is easy. Cool? Helpful?
Yeah, as we got to wrap up.
All right, we'll do one last one. Who wants to bring us up? Anything that's burning that we did not get to? Jen, go for it, man.
We didn't get mine, but
How do you prepare for a presentation?
yeah, so, every buyer seller presentation, you get the science part. Every market's different, every house is different, the market data. So I'm like, it's a lot of work. I feel like I can't go on the same day appointments.
Yep.
Get a lead.
Are
3 days to prepare.
Are you talking about doing the market analysis, or are you talking about the proof pieces? Because the proof pieces, the proof pieces is really easy. You should have a binder of proof, right? And then when you talk to the person on the phone, and maybe you don't get all the information, you can go through. So you have like your listing booklet, and then you have your proof binder, right? And your proof binder should be labeled. It should be sexy, right? But everything should just be in there, and then you could just show them the proof pieces while you're there.
But I make new ones for each listing appointment.
Good.
You don't need-
No. So here, this is good. The only thing you should be changing for a listing, there's only 2 things you should be changing. 3 things you should be changing for every listing appointment. Number 1, you need to do some market analysis, right? So whatever your workflow is, I need to do a CMA and learn the market, whatever that is.
Yep.
Second, you need to send you need to sell the appointment email that we're going to do. You have to do that, right? And the third, you need to get your lender voicemail. Those are the only 3 things you do in an appointment. Everything else should be pre-built. The only time you update your presentation is once a quarter, because it's very easy to get in the act of always just making your presentation better. You can just literally have a box and put all your stuff in the box, and then once a quarter, you upgrade your presentation. But only 3 things: sell the appointment, lender voicemail, and market analysis. That should take you an hour.
So what about the early access email? 'Cause I've been doing that for years.
Dude, so either early access email or sell the appointment. For you to send an email is like 4 minutes, bro.
No, but I gotta wait for them to respond.
Yeah, but same day, that will not work on a same day appointment. You would still send it, and then what you would do on a follow up is, hey, FYI, Vikram, I did this, and look at the 4 people that responded. Yeah, you still send it.
But you could show
Or show what you did
previous
before.
ones.
Exactly
Yeah.
right.
So like Jen, you go into your email, your CRM. You have Skillman, you have New Jersey, you have whatever. You can build those out previously, and then you can send it and say, "Hey, look, here's what I did today." right? And then you say, hey, would it be cool if like I shared with you the responses, 24 to 48 hours later,
By the way,
if you need to?
what is your average commission?
20 grand, 30 grand.
So $30,000. Put in the freaking 3 hours, bro. No, I'm not. I love you. You know me, but like we're overthinking this stuff. No, like,
Get your VA to do this shit.
we just sold a company. I hired an attorney to sell one of our companies. The entire transaction, it was like a $3 million sale. The entire transaction, he got paid $42,000. He sold a company for $3 million and he got paid $42,000, right? And he worked his ass off, right? You already this stuff is working for you right now. I would just get it more and more compartmentalized, but you can't replace market update. Market analytics. You can't replace the sell the appointment email. Every opportunity that you get, you should think, if I don't get this opportunity, how do I generate 3 more? That's why the other things are important. What most people do is like, I got this listing appointment. I'm going to do everything to get it. I'm super excited I got this listing appointment. How can I get 4 more for this? Early access email, sell the appointment, lender voicemail, all of that. That's the stuff that's the most important. And then, so now you're going to get excited about getting more appointments.
What's sell the appointment email?
Hey, you could say, you write like a deal of the week. And you say, hey, I'm going on an appointment to visit with Cody, visit with my friend, potentially bringing this home to market in the next 2 weeks. This is what it has. If you're interested in something like this, just reply.
Oh, early access.
Same exact thing. Selling it. Exactly. See, he's got the name down, which is perfect.
Yeah. All right, you guys. We got a jam.
Can we what was the appraisal question?
Yeah, so
Appraisals around
because of
compensation.
Because of the decoupling of compensation, we're unsure if like the buyer paid the compensation, it may not be reflected in the sales price, which means that where is the appraisal going to come in? So they're unsure of that. But I'm going to tell you, I don't see the buyer coming out of pocket to pay compensation.
No.
It's going to be super rare for that to happen. So I don't think there's going to be any change. And I'm excited to be proven wrong. But if I'm proven wrong, we're all in deep doo-doo because half the market is just going to freeze. And that's just super hard. So I think we're going to have to figure out how appraisals work, is the math work right, et cetera. But that's the MLS's problem, not ours. So.
All right, guys.
Okay.
Big round of applause to Sharran and
Hey, I
Cody.
appreciate you guys.
Thank you, guys.